Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome to Rootbound, the podcast, not about plants. All right, so this is episode 5. Can y'all believe that we're at episode 5? I know I can't. The first 4 episodes that you listened to were filmed early September. Early September, and here we are late September, the 26th, recording new episodes. So indulge me while I go through a list of things that have changed since I filmed the last episode, which is episode 4. A lot of milestones have been crossed, a lot of great updates, and I want to share those with you guys. So let's start with stats. So just on the 8th of September, which is not even 20 days ago, it's about 18 days ago, 17 days ago, a little bit more than 2 weeks ago, I had 4 established audience members. If you follow my Instagram page for the podcast, it's root_bound_podcast. I posted on September 3rd, I think, or September 4th, but the screenshot was from September 3rd, that I had 4 established audience members. Fast forward to today, I have 26 established audience members. I am blown away that we are having people listen, and it really blesses my heart. And so another really cool fact, I've got an audience member in Germany. I did look up how to say hello in Germany, but I'm not going to do you like that. I'm going to respect your language and not do that. So I'll just say hello. Thank you for watching Rootbound. I hope that it's blessing you. I hope that it's just helping you. And if it is, let me know. And but we'll get to that a little bit later. What else has changed? I with the listeners, obviously my listens have gone up. There's a lot of days that nobody listens, but there are days that, the highest I've ever gotten for a while was 4 listens in one day. I just hit a 6 listen day today, or yesterday. Yesterday. So I feel so just awesome hitting these little baby milestones, because it all builds up, right? Another update, I have a logo. You might see that. It's I had the vision in my head what I wanted, and then I reached out to a dear friend of mine that I used to work with. I knew he was an artist, but I don't know if I knew he was an artist when I worked with him. But I was looking for an artist. I wanted to go with somebody that I knew, or somebody knew them that was close, or somebody that I knew them at least. I could have gone on Fiverr and paid $50 and got it done, but I really wanted to contribute to artists that either I knew or that other people knew, because for multiple reasons, that entrepreneurial spirit, that they're selling their art for a livelihood, but also everybody's hit hard because of COVID, and I would assume that artists were as well. And so we have a logo. It's a sunflower. It's my favorite flower. There's other deeper meanings to a sunflower, but in general, it's really because it's my favorite flower. And as you see, my computer case has a sunflower now as well, just to kind of represent that through and through. And maybe one day I'll get it put on the laptop case. I don't know, but we have a logo, and every time I see it, it's just beautiful. It makes me smile. I hope that it catches people's eye and makes them smile. So that's an update. As well as another update, we are now on Apple Podcasts. You might be listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, but let me tell you, it was not easy. No, sirree. It was not easy to get onto Apple Podcasts. I don't know. Well, first, I host my podcast on Anchor. I looked up before I hosted it where they distributed my podcast. Apple Podcasts was one. And I don't know if Apple changed something in their contracts or whatever, but something changed, and now Anchor can no longer post on there. So I had to figure out how the heck I was going to get my podcast onto Apple Podcasts. One, because it's the biggest and the first podcast distribution app, site, whatever, and it's the number one way that people get podcasts or listen to their podcast. So I had to get on there in order to get my name out there. So I was Googling, I was on YouTube, but everything was outdated at least by 6 months. And I don't know if they recently have done some changes. So long story short, I finally figured it out. I'm so happy. I finally figured it out. The views on Apple Podcasts so far, statistical wise, aren't very high, but that's something new that I'm promoting as well. Along with promotions, and this is our last update, I created a Linktree. I don't know if you guys have seen those on Instagram, but Instagram only allows you to have one link on your bio. And I wanted a way to be able to link all the ways that you can watch or listen to Rootbound. And so I remember I've seen people use Linktree. And so I looked up Linktree, figured out how to set that up. That was probably the easiest thing to set up. Pretty simple. And so I have a Linktree. So if you go to root_bound_podcast and you hit the link, you can either listen to me on Spotify, Anchor, or Apple Podcasts now, or you can watch it when I do a video on YouTube. If I don't do a video, I still upload the audio with like a picture or something like that, because some people just like listening to or getting their audio podcasts from YouTube no matter what. And then this episode is one of 3 episodes that are actually filmed. So I won't film all of them, but I will film, I don't know, I won't even say a majority, but I will film some. So just look out for that. It just depends on where I'm at, how I'm doing, if I feel like getting glammed up. That's really the determining factor. So those are all the house cleaning. That's the announcements. Those are the updates. My heart is happy. But let's get into episode 5, how I prepared myself to be laid off. There's a couple of things that I did to prepare myself, but I think it's really important. Let me start off by this. I believe that a lot of people get either signs, gut feelings, women's intuition, a voice from God, whatever, or just plain, I'm looking at the climate in which I work in or where I'm at, and I could tell that change is coming. And I could either do something about it, or I can ignore it and keep going down my merry way. I believe that when we get those things, we get those signs, or we get that gut feeling, we should do something about it. The worst case scenario is you do something about it and it doesn't happen. Well, you have preparation, and possibly with that preparation, you could do a lot of other things with it, right? So one of the first things that I did as I just started seeing the climate around me, and I talked about this in previous episodes, how I started to see the climate at my organization shift towards other things, the priority shift towards other things. And I will say that the kind of work that I did, when I talk to most people that have been in this field for 10, 20, 30 years, all of them has said, hey, the fact that we're still here is a miracle, because in other industries, we're here for 2, 4, 5 years, and that's max. And then they lay us off, or they redeploy us into different functions and leadership and things like that. The fact that we're still here 6, 7, 8 years in was a miracle. So I was getting not only my gut feelings and just seeing how the company was shifting, but I also was getting wisdom from other people that says, hey, you need to prepare yourself. And there's things I didn't do, and we'll talk about that. But let's start. The first thing that I did, I think most people might do this, is the thing that you can control the most is your finances. How do I control my finances? Again, I was making 6 figures, and I needed to prepare for that to go completely away, cut down to half, whatever the case may be. I'm a pretty frugal person. I like nice things, but I don't spend crazy money. I don't spend crazy money on fancy bags or fancy shoes. Like if I have fancy bags or fancy shoes, chances are my mother has bought them, or I got it on a super dope sale. I did not pay full price at all. Like it has to be like 60-70% off for me to had bought it. So I'm a frugal, cheap, whatever the word you want to use. I'm a frugal, cheap person. And one of the ways that I prepared myself, and just I'm minded that way anyway, is I kept my expenses low. I looked at what the kind of job I could always go back to, which was I worked retail for years. I worked retail leadership for years. I could always go back to that. That's just kind of how I felt. I can always go back to that. Would not want to, just because really the schedule's really grueling. Holidays are like non-existent for you. I would not want to go back to that, but I could, right? So if I had to go back to that, what are the expenses that I would need to keep in control in order to maintain my lifestyle? I bought a house when I was 26 years old. Yeah, 26 years old, 26 or 25 years old. And as soon as I started making six figures, I had the gut feeling to get a bigger house. Just to be honest, like I was making more money. I was like, I need to get a bigger house. I want more bedrooms. I want more bathrooms. I want it to be more updated, all of that. And I just had to chill on that. Really. I mean, I don't know how else to put that. It's probably fear of losing. You know, if you're my age, 35, or 40 or 30, in that kind of 10 plus or minus 5 years, you experience watching the housing crisis in America. And you saw a lot of people, maybe your family included, lose their houses, lose their jobs, lose, some people, practically everything. And I saw that coming out of college, and it put a huge fear into me to never overspend. Not only that, but my mother's always influenced me and put the fear of credit, or the cautious fear or cautious respect of credit. Like, you need credit to do certain things in this country, but don't go crazy. And so because of that fear and seeing so many people lose everything in 2009 and 2010 and 11, I just was really cautious. Before I doubled up on the size of my house and got a bigger one and all that stuff, I said, really, I could live in this house. I live by myself. I outgrow it, but I can get rid of some stuff. I can clean some stuff up. I can update some things here and keep the expenses low, because it's a pretty comfortable mortgage for me to maintain. So I think that although it's kind of a natural thing and it's kind of the American dream, once you make a certain amount of money, you get a bigger house, you get a bigger car or whatever. I did get a car when I turned 30, but I paid that sucker off quick because I was afraid, like I said, of anything happening, and I didn't want that car note on my name. Just a respectful fear of credit. I used it to get the car, but I did not want it on me for too long, and I paid it off, I think, in like 4 years. It was a 7-year loan. I paid it off in 4 years, or 3.5, or something like that. So that's really how that's one way I prepared my finances. Another way is that I started saving money. I started putting money aside well before COVID, but during COVID, as you guys know, if you have student loans, they stopped. You didn't have to make any more payments. Interest stopped, everything. I was making payments still, and then I just said, I'm going to stop making payments. It's not going up. It's not really affected right now. So I just put all that money into savings. And any extra money I was getting, taxes, tax returns, going into savings. Any extra money that I was getting from, settlements that I might have gotten into savings. Everything was into savings. Because of COVID, I wasn't traveling. I wasn't eating out as much. I wasn't doing anything but really chilling in my house, cooking, and, none of the entertainment stuff was going on that would normally be going on. I put so much money into savings. And so I would say that if you know and if you know your expenses every month, right, if you don't, write them all down. I have one of these notebooks, and I wrote down every expense that I have every month, and I totaled it up. How much does it cost for me to live on the bills that I have? And I totaled that up, and I said, okay, cool. I need to have that times 6 months at the very least. I want it to be times 12 months, a whole year, because I have seen people during the crash of the housing crash of 2009 be out of work for over a year. And I needed to make sure that I could do that because that was within my control, right? And the world was changing so much. As well as with finances, as I said, I made a list of everything. And I started canceling things that were monthly. Disney Plus, canceled it, don't need it. My sister has an account. Why do I need one? Things like I had a beauty account that I had for years that I was getting samples from. Loved it because I got to experience new makeup, new skincare, all kind of stuff. Don't really need it though. It's piling crap in my house. I don't need it for multiple reasons, financial and just stuff. Every month I would be getting, and sometimes I didn't even use it. Sometimes it wasn't even applicable to my skin texture or my color. So I canceled that. I went down the list of the different bills that I could call the company and see if I can negotiate a lower rate. That's a tip for you. I didn't really know that you could do that until my mom was really the first one that did it, but I actually heard it from a finance person on YouTube that says negotiate your rates. So I negotiated rates for my cable company. They docked it almost in half just because I asked. And I just went down the list and say, okay, what are the things I can do? What are the things I don't need to have? What are the things that I can cut? And I just started cutting, and it was actually like a game to see how much money I can save myself. And again, I was already living really cheap, but it was wonderful to live even cheaper. Make it a game. See if you can cut your expenses by 10% by just making phone calls. And all that money that you're saving, put it into savings or put it into, other investments that you might have. So that's how I prepared my finances. I'm pretty frugal already, so if you're not, you might want to lean towards that. If you're getting that gut feeling that something's changing in your industry, you might need to just drink some Kool-Aid from the frugal fountain and figure out what things that you could stop spending money on. I still need to stop spending money on DoorDash. This is my confession. Don't judge me. I'm not ready for that conversation. But I have cut it down. Can I tell you? I have not ordered DoorDash for almost 2 weeks. Almost 2 weeks. I didn't say I haven't eaten out. DoorDash. Very specific. So the second way that I prepared myself is I allowed myself to dream again. I needed to know what I was going to do with the next step. And it didn't... Obtaining another job was not high on my list. As you guys remember from the last episode, choosing yourself, that was high on everybody else's list for me. Find a job, get your name out there, apply. That was high on their list, but it was not high on mine. What was high on mine was to listen to myself. What did I want? What did I want to do that I have never had time to, or what I didn't even really know. So I allowed myself to dream and make goals. And one of those goals is starting this podcast. And I just had a very low minimum goal. And in the next couple of weeks, I will share my future goals for this podcast. But because I had to make some very specific goals now that we're in this machine now. But in the beginning, it was just get started. Get started with a podcast. What are you going to title it? What are you going to talk about? And promote it. That was really my goal, is just to start. Don't be afraid. Jump in and get it done. And that, it's been a dream of mine to start a podcast for a really long time, as well as it's kind of a goal for me to share my experiences with other people in in hopes that it helps. So that's one of the goals. I have other goals as far that I still haven't done them. Can I make a confession? I have a room that I would love to clean out. So I need to do that in the next. I'm going to make that the goal for October, is to clean that room out. And I'm looking at the room right now. It's dark, but I need to clean it. I know it's a hot mess. I was looking at pictures of when I first put that room together, and I can walk around in it. I can't really walk around it anymore. So that's a goal of mine. So yeah, I think I say that dreaming again, making goals for yourself is how you prepare yourself. It helps you to be productive. It helps you to have something to look forward to, because before I started to have these goals, I really didn't have anything to look forward to other than sleeping in, other than not commuting, other than just the abyss. And that could be kind of depressing if you don't make goals for yourself. And because then, unless you're not a high achievement person, I'm a high achievement person. I need to have a to-do list and start checking things off. Whether they're goals, whether they're tasks, I like checking things off, and it makes me feel productive. It makes me feel valued. It makes me feel like I am using my time wisely. And so I had to figure out what those goals and those objectives would be. Another was for me to start working out again. I worked out a lot during COVID quarantine, heavy quarantine in 2020. I worked out almost every day, whether it was high intensity or low intensity, like a walk, but every day I moved my body. And later in the year 2020, all the way until like recently, before I got laid off, I wasn't doing that as consistently. And so I had to get back to that. That was another goal for me. One of the other ways that I prepared myself is I prepared my resume. As you guys remember, people were telling me to prepare my resume, but I wasn't hearing them in the time that they told me. I did not want to hear them, but I had to prepare my resume. We live in such a wonderful time that there's so many resources out there to help you to develop a really sound resume. I just saw, and I'm probably going to try this trick, but I just saw somebody. So say you're applying for a analyst job, senior analyst job, right? At Google, let's just say, at Google. This guy he searched a senior analyst that worked at Google, didn't know them, but he looked at their bio in their LinkedIn, and he copied and pasted it into his resume and into his LinkedIn profile. Why? Because those are people that are already in the job that you want. So why not use the language? Why not use the verbiage? Now he didn't take their success stories, but he used the description of their job and just very generic things. But it's the language, it's the presentation that he wanted, and I thought that was such a cool idea. I just saw that, so I might steal that. But there's so many different ways to improve your resume. I updated my resume yearly, but I still had to. I took hours redoing it and watching videos on how to make it better. Yeah, it's still probably going to change. I'm still going to constantly change it, and I will change it based on the jobs that I will apply for. But that is a total different thing to focus on, other than kind of like your intrinsic goals and stuff, is how do I sell myself now? I would recommend also watching videos about interviewing. If it's been a long time that you've interviewed, I haven't had an interview really in like 10 years, 10 years. And so I had to learn how to interview again, and practice and watch myself. I would record myself. I would watch myself in the mirror and give myself notes and things like that. Look up questions that might come up in an interview, do's and don'ts. There's so many videos on how to give a really good interview. Watch those. And then finally, let's talk about the things that I did not do, that I wish I could do. And as I reflect back, I wish I could have done this. I didn't ask for one, I didn't ask for letters of recommendation. I think that, again, because I didn't get to acceptance that I wasn't going to come back or I wasn't going to be a part of this organization anymore until the very last day. So I never asked for any letters of recommendation. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but ask for letters of recommendation before you leave the organization, because once you leave, good luck getting them. Good luck. Everybody says they're going to write you a letter of recommendation. Everybody says if you need one, just let them know. But when you're gone, you're gone. And out of sight, out of mind. And it's unfortunate. And I haven't asked everybody. I haven't asked a whole bunch of people. But the people that I have asked and reached out for, it hasn't happened. And I also feel like a burden when I ask multiple times. So I just won't ask multiple times. I asked once, didn't get it, I won't ask again. And that's just because I don't want to be a burden. I figure you're just really busy and I don't want to add to your plate. A couple of things that I also didn't do. The gut feeling that I was getting that we might be laid off sometime soon. I wish that I would have started applying for other jobs. That, if you guys recall, I would look for jobs every time I had a bad day, if I had a bad few weeks, if multiple things would happen, and I would just get on Indeed and say, I'm going to find another job. And if it didn't make the same salary that I made or whatever, again, I was really comfortable in the position that I had, I would just pass it. I didn't apply for any jobs while I was feeling unhappy or I was feeling like we would be laid off. I didn't apply for any jobs. And I would say that is a huge regret of mine, is I should have applied for jobs. I should have gotten my name out there. I should have been watching all these videos that I'm watching about resumes and how to interview, how to improve your LinkedIn, how to reach out to recruiters, all these things that I'm looking up. They were there 4 years ago. I just wasn't in a place that I was ready to move on. And I wish if I could talk to myself back then, I would have, because I probably could have been somewhere either probably making more money or happier sooner. And I would have avoided a lot of the pain that I experienced going through this process. But I don't have a huge regret. I just give that to you as wisdom. I don't have a huge regret because I feel really blessed of where I'm at right now. Again, I don't think my podcast would have happened if I didn't get laid off, because what would I be talking about, right? I think the final thing that I didn't do, that I, upon reflection, hope that I would have, is ask for greater responsibility at the organization that I supported and put myself out there I was in very unofficial leadership positions. I wish I would have pushed myself towards official leadership positions, either in that organization, that specific location I worked for, or the organization out wide. I wish I would have pushed myself, believed in myself, had the confidence in myself to know that I could. And the reason why I say that is I know that I could now. And I have gained a lot of knowledge in the last 2, 3, 4 years, but I could have still done a great job, a fantastic job in a leadership position somewhere else. And so I would say to you, if you feel like your job is about to go bye-bye, take a plunge. Every organization that you go to, if you have leadership skills or you have natural skills that people give you compliments about, that you know are unique, that you know are reputable, even if there's doubt there, you know what you're good at. Follow that. Follow it. Don't stay somewhere too long just because you're comfortable. Follow it. Apply. I would always give this advice to people friends that would tell me they're thinking about applying to a job, and they would go, oh, maybe I don't know if I'm going to meet those qualifications. I would tell them this all the time, but I did not take it. You cannot turn a job down that has not been offered to you. So apply. Don't be afraid. Put your name out there. And I didn't do that because I allowed myself to be comfortable, root bound, just get my roots just twisted in that little pot. And upon reflection, I wish that I hadn't. I wish that I would have pushed myself to a different position, to a different whatever. Because as I got to know other people in very similar positions, even now, I see myself doing them. So I should have pushed myself. Why did I wait? Right? Why did I wait? Just let my confidence I cut my confidence in half. Nobody else did that to me. I did it to myself. Hence the root bound mindset. So anyway, that is episode 5. How I prepared myself, along with some things that I could have done, some things that I did, some things that I could have done. I hope that this episode blesses you. Look forward to seeing you guys next Friday at 10 a.m. for the next episode. If you're listening to me on Apple Podcasts, may I please ask you to leave me a review? I'm sure it helps in the Amazon. I'm sure it helps in the Apple algorithm or whatever. If I get reviews, then more people get to see me, or maybe I'm in some mentions or recommended. But at the very least, the most important to me is I like going through the reviews. I get people reaching out to me directly, but as my podcast grows and things like that, that's not probably going to be an option. It's going to not be an option for everybody to direct message me. So I would encourage you guys to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, because a bunch of people see that. So if they're like, what's this podcast about? Am I going to like it? And I look at the reviews and there's no reviews there, they may pass it. As well as there's, like I talked about in the beginning, when you're trying something new, a lot of doubt comes into your mind. And, why are you doing this stupid little podcast? Nobody's going to listen to you. All this stuff, right? Reading the reviews, getting your feedback, your words of encouragement really uplift me in the times where a lot of self-doubt creeps into my head about this podcast, or just when life happens. There's bumps in the road all the time. And so knowing that my podcast is helpful or a good listen, or is relatable to you in a way, so you see yourself in this podcast, really blesses me and makes me feel encouraged to keep going. So if you can, write a review. I really appreciate it. As well as if you're listening to me on the Anchor app, leave me a voicemail. If you scroll down the page, you should see a little button that says messages. Leave me a message. You could leave me a review, a question, or whatever. If it's a question or a topic, I actually can put that question or topic into the next episode. So if you want to be on the next episode, leave me a voicemail. If you're listening to me or watching me right now on YouTube, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to hit all my bases right now because we're on a lot of things right now, because I wanted to get on everything. And maybe after a while, I'll see a niche and I'll see a population that I really need to focus on. But for now, it's everybody. I'm focusing on everybody. Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.